Hey, this has been the craziest week. I broke my crown. And so I had to
Oh,
go back and get it fixed.
no.
At first I thought, oh, it just shifted. There's like, nah, dog. We're gonna have to go in there, and they put a little repair in it, and everything is fine. But I was talking like this, and that isn't good for the podcast. I don't know
No.
how Harry Kissinger did it, but I wasn't gonna do my mush mouth impression
Yeah,
on
that's probably good.
the podcast. Then I have sites from WPNG because I used to work for them and with them, and I went in to change out some stuff in on the site that's hosting
Mhm.
these podcasts right now. Child, the JavaScript was all over the place, and the PHP was a mess. So I had to go sit down. I had to nuke two sites. Honestly, is what I had to do, and then I had to rebuild a third one, which is where the podcast is now. And then I had to rebuild another one because there was a theme that I really liked that I put everywhere, and it died on the vine. It
Oh
is no
no.
longer being updated, so it kind of broke everything. So I had to clear all of that. Then I found a new manufacturer for my cards,
Okay.
so I have to redo the art for all of my cards, put them in the new templates. That's 4 decks. Because not only it's stabby, my
Mhm.
spoons are stabby, those cards are being printed to fulfill the Kickstarter, but all my divination decks are being done by them. This is the first time I have inventory for those. Then I got an invitation to help at a homestead.
Okay.
So Omaha is coming, but it may not be my next move.
Okay.
And what's odd about that is it still feels right in line with what I want to talk about today. Why are we doing this? Like, what's the goal?
Why
I'm
are we
like,
doing this creative life, or why are we doing this podcast?
well, I reckon it's the same answer for both. But yeah, why are we doing this? That's what I want to talk about. My sponsor Stabby has 4 slimes, and I want them to be done in a paper cut type situation where it
Okay.
looks like they're cut out of paper.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm hiring somebody for that, and they're asking me, can you clarify? I
Right.
do not fully understand your statement. Are you requesting character designs for this? Hello. This is how I spend my days. The glamorous life of someone who manufactures their own products is usually time spent like this, talking to somebody who trying to be clear and concise and communicative when you barely speak English and this person speaks 3 languages. So it's one of those things where I have to learn to keep him sharp because he's already 2 ahead of me.
Yeah.
um,
I hired an artist to do character art for the book, and she just sent me her rough drafts this morning, and they came out amazing. But like, so she's doing like a portrait of the main character, and then she's doing a logo with Queens Creek on it, and it's
yes,
supposed to look like one of those old like travel patches that you get on your jacket or whatever.
yes,
Um, and so I sent her some like actual travel patches as options and told her a little bit about like what the community is like and what the town looks like. I had described it as being like a colonial town that's lost in the woods. It's like Roanoke or something, right?
yeah, girl, yes.
And her thing came out and it's so cute, but it's very like it's colonial, like colonial Williamsburg, and I was thinking colonial more like Jamestown or early Salem or something older.
Yeah,
And so hers is more like they're more advanced buildings than what I was picturing.
right.
Which would be fine, except that there's like a big church on the side, and I was like, that church is gorgeous, and it is totally on. When I say colonial town, of course of course they built it around a church, but
Oh
like
yeah,
not
well,
my
yes.
town because they're witches, and they built their town because they were fleeing persecution, so they
Right.
probably don't have a big cross in the middle of their town.
I would highly doubt that. I would say that's a no. They don't have it.
Yeah. So I was like, this is great. I love your design. You're very talented. You've done like I completely understand why your mind went that way, but like
Yeah,
it's just not gonna work. We're
yeah.
gonna need to change
This is not what I thought.
it.
This is not the image I had in my mind.
Yeah, no. So I think we're gonna replace the town. It was like a silhouette-ish of the town. I think we're gonna put just the gatehouse, and that's a little bit more um fairy tale-y. It's supposed to, in the book it's described as something Hansel and Gretel might find. Um
Oh,
so um so I think it's gonna still have like the creek in the front and the trees and the skyline and stuff, but instead of having like little buildings for the town, it's just gonna have this one like central building with a bridge that goes over the creek. And it's like that's how you get into the town anyway. So um she's gonna get back to me by Sunday with her new version, I think. Um, so that'll be exciting. Her design for Kate came off perfect. Like I gave her a paragraph about what I wanted the main character to look like and what some of the inspirations were for the type of person that she was. And then I was like, based on my budget, I can't afford the full scene experience with like putting her in a place and having like a setting and stuff. So I just want like a basic plain background. And she said that she was struggling with figuring out how to include a lot of the things that she liked about my description of the character about with like the tarot cards and that her magic is built around using time. And she's like, and I didn't really know how to show that except like to give her a watch, and that seems cheesy. So instead of doing just like a wash color background, she made this like tarot. It looks like a tarot card, and
right.
then you know how they have these like illuminated where it looks like the around the person's head it looks like the sun kind of a thing
Yeah,
usually
the
in its sort
halo.
of medieval kind of whatever. But so she's this very modern girl and she's standing here with her like to go coffee cup, but she's got this illumination thing behind her and it's Roman numeral. It looks like a clock, and I'm
Oh,
like, it's perfect. It's got these little like art deco-y lines hanging down the sides with little stars and stuff, and I was like, that is so much more than what I asked for. Like I don't even, it's amazing. I love it so
I,
much.
oh my God! It just sounds absolutely amazing.
Right,
And
it's perfect. It's exactly, I showed it to my alpha reader, my critique partner, and she was like, exclamation point, exclamation. I'm like,
because that is absolutely fabulous. I'm like, sometimes you think that no one is ever going to understand your vision.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, not only does somebody do it, but they're like, because they're so practiced in that kind of art style or what have you, they put their own spin on it. And you're just like, had I
Mhm.
known it was this good, I probably would have used better words to describe it.
Right. I'm like, kind of like, I went back and read my description and it's got all these qualifiers in it. And I'm like, she sort of does this and she kind of has this and this. And I'm just like, what is wrong with me? But she read it and she got it. And it looks perfect.
Oh man, yeah. I just get really excited when I hear people talk about that moment where it was in your head and it got translated and it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a thing that exists.
Right?
And for those of you who cannot see the video, I am sniffing a postcard because I am part cat and there's something about paper that I just love.
It
So
smells good.
I bet your office smells great.
Oh, it does. It smells really good. Oh, let me show you also. I have a little extra. So it smells good because of all of that. But then
Right.
my
For those of you not watching video, she has a shit ton of books in her office.
it's the library. We call my office the library. But my sister-in-law gave me this candle for my birthday, and it's called Bookstore Scent.
Ooh.
So it's mahogany, leather, and coffee. It's a soy candle.
Because
It's
yeah,
Frostbeard Studios.
Frostbeard Studios
It's so
bookstore.
good.
You said mahogany, leather, and coffee.
Yeah, it smells like a bookstore. Like it's and you light it and it just like makes the whole room smell like
And I
it's
love how you handed it out so I could take a sniff. And I love how I bent in to take a sniff. For those of you not watching the video or unaware, I live in Texas. Jenn lives in Virginia. But no, I literally like, ooh, what is
Right. Your imagination.
it's pretty good. It was good enough for me to think this was gonna work. And then what happened was I mean Kit Jennings, she wrote the Curious Case Files series in Shaman States of America, and she was really, really essential in helping me get my Spoons Are Stabby done. Just by being there and just helping me slog through it. And she also came up with the name because it was going to be Spoons and Wounds before.
Okay.
We are working on we say we're working on the main game, but what we're actually doing is helping her build her road rally death race game.
Okay.
And I'm also, at the same time, we are making every kind of vehicle playbook, every kind of character playbook, powers. We're building up the components to the main game. And so this last week, I've been making vehicles and giving them weirdo names like the Vroomba and Uncle Joe. And the tagline is, "Here comes Uncle Joe, and he's moving mighty slow, but you ain't got what it takes to keep him from where he wants to go." And his special move is the cannonball.
Okay.
For those of you who are very old like me, y'all know where that comes from. And then I have a Carmen Gia called the Man-Eater. Because what it does a lot of push me, pull you.
Okay.
It pushes people off the road or pulls people towards them. So I call it the Man-Eater. We have the mini tank.
That'd be fun.
It's faster than a tank. It's a tiny tank. That's a tank in terms of RPG.
It goes through everything.
It goes through everything, but it's very small. Think if you had a smart car and all of a sudden it could just flip you. That's the one. And then I have another one called the Shoveler. It's called the Drone. And what it's based on the Mercedes AVTR concept car. And so they're real big wheels, wide wheels, and then the front slopes down, and it looks like a trowel or something that you would use to pick up all the overgrown grass on your sidewalk. One of those flat trowels. It looks just like that. So I gave it the power so it can go and flip people, or it can clear people before them behind it. So that's what I've been working on. That's the weakest bit.
That sounds so fun.
It is amazing. It is so fun. It is a whole lot.
That is a lot.
That is a lot. So, how were the swim meets? How was the birthday? How was the cake?
Oh my gosh. Did you see the cake on Facebook?
I saw the cake on Facebook and on TikTok and on Instagram. And it made me smile every time I saw that thing.
TikTok one took off. I don't know what happened. It was crazy.
Because they love that.
They did. I never had so many views on anything I ever posted in my life. That's when I put that thing on TikTok. But it was good. And then I put it all together, and we had this X-Wing on the table, and everything was great. And then afterwards, we're like, okay, so now we got to figure out how it's all going to fit away, because it can't just live on the table indefinitely.
Right.
So I had to disassemble it and put it in different boxes so that it would all fit in the fridge. And it doesn't look like an X-Wing anymore. It's just boxes of cake, but it still tastes good. So that worked out well.
What's your hubby think?
Oh, he was very impressed. He took a bunch of pictures and sent them to his family. And so that was pretty fulfilling for me, because he said, we tried to keep it a secret, but he knew what was happening, because once I brought the frame into the house, it's real obvious. He's like, "Oh, you're making a biplane." Yeah, wink, it's a biplane.
That's exactly what it is, baby.
Sure, it's gonna be a biplane.
Good observation skills, baby. and walk off.
But yeah.
Surprise secure.
So yeah. So so that worked out pretty well. The kids were super excited. We went to Party City and got like a inflatable R2D2, so it's sitting on our mantle. Probably will be sitting on our mantle at Christmas still because it's only like that big and it doesn't seem to be losing any air.
Right. Put some tinsel in that bad boy and keep it rolling.
Right.
He was in the Christmas special.
He was. It works. He's all seasons holiday decoration is what
Yes, he is evergreen.
He
Part
is.
2 is evergreen.
But yeah, so that was good. And then we won the swim meets, which is good. The kids, their times got better on freestyle. Their times got worse on backstroke. So we're gonna have to have some extra lessons on backstroke. So that was our family drama for this week. Creative life wise, I got my book set up for beta readers on Story Origin, and I was like, I'm not gonna look at it. I'm gonna wait a few days and let it all accrue, and then I'm gonna go look at all of it at the same time. And yeah, no, I'm looking at it like I'm refreshing. I'm sitting here looking at stuff like 4 times in an hour, and it's just like and it's really interesting. I'm still trying to figure out some things about it because it does so many things, and there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Like I can pull up, they are, I think, required to leave a response at the end of each chapter in order to get to the next chapter. And so they put there's a rating of out of 5 of how they feel about this chapter, and then there's a rating out of 5 of how much they're anticipating the next chapter, and then there's a space for them to write like a sentence or a paragraph. And I didn't think they were required to write the sentence or the paragraph, but one of the beta readers already finished the book. I gave it to them on Monday and she finished it today. And
today is Thursday, by the way.
She said, no, I mean, she was 20 chapters in on day 2. And I was like,
what?
Okay.
That's which a girl who only reads one book at a time.
Well, I think she must. Well, she beta read the first book for me and she finished that in like 3 days. So I should have known better, but she's amazing. Like she's this lady lives in Scotland, and she could be editing. Like she's leaving me little notes about like phrasing and stuff, and or she's catching anytime there's a like this is a typo or this thing doesn't make sense. In addition to like the regular like what I'm looking for from a beta reader. I told them this. I'm not looking for like line edits, but I'm getting them anyway.
Well, since I'm already here.
I'm like, all right, cool. But like, is she not wrong?
No. We are thankful. We are thankful that they could take the time because they could be doing anything.
Right? It's so
and they
great.
did a
it's amazing. Deal. Well, and then she does stuff for me where she'll be like, okay, this word doesn't mean the same thing if you're British. And I was like, I thought I was pretty good about most of those things. And there's some, like, I would say she had gotten something or other. And she's like, nobody ever says had gotten. And I'm like, okay. And that was something she told me on the first book. And I didn't realize how many times I said it. So like that was a thing I probably should fix anyway, because it was overused, and had in general is not.
It's got, isn't it?
So it was. Yeah, I think it was in most cases it was. I was using like the what is it past. It wasn't present? The most active. It wasn't the most active past tense that I could be using. Right. Basically, in almost every case, it was like take that out and put an active verb in there, and it's a better sentence anyway.
It also it's good information to have. It's good to know that she has those kind of eyes, especially when it matters.
Yeah, I was like it's amazing. Like I'm definitely trying to, maintain that relationship, because she's been so helpful in her feedback, and it's detailed. And anyway, but so she finished it, and at the end I did a little questionnaire, and I was like, did you like this one as a follow-up to the first one? Does it meet your expectations? And then separate from how well you liked the book, how well do you like the beta reading experience on Story Origin? Because I don't want to have her not want to beta read for me because she doesn't like the platform, right, or whatever. So she says she liked most of the system fine, but she didn't like being forced to make a comment at the end of each chapter. So I may need to look at it again, because I thought she was required to do the ratings. I didn't think the writing a sentence part was required, but I'll have to look into it again. But I could tell where she was getting bored with those because some of her, it's like another great chapter. This this chapter is good. Like her. So she left these great inline comments, and then she gets to the end and she's got to write something in this passage. And
This
it's just
section
like,
intentionally left blank.
right. Very well written chapter. And I'm like, thanks.
Right.
But like,
no, I get that, but I also understand because I'm a lazy beta reader. Girl,
yeah.
I'm lazy. And I would probably try to cheese it.
Yeah.
Or if I've read the book already and it's my second time reading it through, I'd only want to comment on the stuff that I was interested in. So I think the mechanic there of having them put it in there is a way of keeping folks honest. Because while you have in this one someone like Lynn is to me, she's your own personal Lynn Stigler, who is just incredible, incredibly smart, right on time, sharp, right? And not about your BS.
Right.
Right. But for every one of her, there's going to be 100 folks who aren't as diligent. And that's why the tools are in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in there for that reason, like, so to make somebody say something,
right?
But the system doesn't take into account that they've been giving line notes in the side.
Right.
So I feel like if you've been giving the line notes on the side, you shouldn't necessarily be required to leave a response at the end of the chapter, in addition to all this stuff that you put on the side. So I don't know. If I can't get around that, I might tell her to just like copy paste whatever her last side comment was.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is this something you can change for individual people? If it is, absolutely take it out. And if not, this space intentionally left blank is always available.
Right. But it is really exciting because it's easier to keep track of than when I was using Google Docs for beta readers. And I'm not getting, a separate email every time somebody responds to something like I did when I was using Google Docs. I am getting an email when I have like stepped away from it and closed it out for a while. If I come in the next day and people have been in there since the last time I was in there, I get an email from Story Origin that's like, you have new feedback that you haven't seen yet. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But that's like one email as opposed to, the Google Docs where it's like every single time somebody puts something in, you get a new email about it. And then I'm like, oh, I have to read it. I have to read it right now because I got a notification that it's there.
Right. So much. It greatly reduces all the crazy making emails, to be sure. Because I just could not handle that when I was working with it. So now that we've talked out, we haven't talked out, but now I'm trying to segue over to what we're talking about in this episode.
Right.
Which is, what are we literally working on? Why are we doing this? What are we working on, and why are we doing this? Why are we choosing this as the vehicle? So let's talk about what we do here, what we're doing here. We talk about creating, building a creative life. What specific creative life are we building? I think the first episode 0, was why, and now this is the what. Okay, cool. Okay. My name is Chrishaun Keller, formerly Chrishaun Keller Hannah. I write Monster Hunter books and Monster Hunter games for my friends. I started publishing in 2016, and I started with a few books in a high fantasy universe called Alazar. Absolutely. I got fans, folks loved to read, but they couldn't follow it. And it was because it was really high concept. And so I took those parts, scrapped all that down, and came back with a monster hunting universe called Shaman States of America, which I absolutely love. It's very fun. It's very contemporary. It's about 2% of the world's population can see monsters, and they've been constricted into hunting them. And they have a shadow government, and they have an underground, and they have the mafia and the assassins guild, and groups of 3 folks traveling around hunting monsters. There's 27 titles in the universe so far. And I published my first game, my Spoons Are Stabby, in January of this year, marking my full transition from being an author to being a game designer. My next project is the Sugar Evil game system, where I'm building a tabletop RPG in Power by the Apocalypse style. And the first game under that is Medusa's Trucking Company, which is a road rally community building RPG. And why am I doing that? Is simple. If I'm honest with myself, I always wanted to make games. I always wanted to make board games. I wanted to write books too, but once I wrote all the books and I loved the books I was writing and still was like, this isn't quite what I wanted to do, and made my first game. Once I made my first game in my fictional universe, it felt like the heavens opened up and angels started singing. It really did, because it just kind of pulled it all together. And then conversely, at the same time, having I was having a lot of issues with the fact that I was becoming a public figure. And I really didn't particularly care for that because I don't like a lot of attention. I am trained for it. I'm theatrically trained. Part of my life as an evangelical Christian was going and talking to people about God. So I know how to talk to people. I know how to speak in public. I don't like it. And so as I struggled with becoming more and more public, and I'm more afraid of my very unconventional spiritual life, um, talking more about that, I kind of shied away from actually doing what I could have been doing, because I didn't want to have the fact that I um, have supernatural ability. Let's put it that way. I didn't want it to overshadow it, because then you get into the weeds about folks believing you and you sounding crazy and all of that. And that's not the focus of what I do. That said, my moral compass is the core of everything that I do. And that was the reason why it was so hard for people at first to get into my books, because they didn't know who I was. And I was having a hard time articulating who I was and what I do. So, I kind of sat down with that and I created a project called The Lens, which is part manifesto, part 48 laws of power, about how I see the world and how um about my moral compass, how I see the world, and how this has allowed me to do a lot of good things, and without creating victims, without being a victim. And so the lens is empathy, truth, joy, kindness, and anti-greed. That's the lens which I see the world. That's the lens which the world operates. And I wanted to make it so it wasn't religious specific, because it's not. The greatest lie man ever told is that God requires belief in him. I'm going to be very clear when I say this. Worship is looking at life and living life through this lens. You do not need to believe in God to do that. But if you do decide that you believe in God and you enter covenant with him, with her, with them, mashallah, right? If you go and you get into covenant with a deity, with a God, then yes, you have to follow those tenets because you made a promise. But there's just as many who do not believe. And every last one of them can receive the blessings that comes from, I'm putting in quotes for those who cannot see the video, worshiping God, right? Because living through empathy, truth, kindness, joy, and anti-greed gives you the same benefit. So I am finding a place for that as well. And the safest place right now is embedded within Shaman States of America. Since I've written myself in the universe as the director of R&D and product development for caramelsugarevil, I was, quote unquote, asked by one of my characters to kind of put together a manifesto of why we do what we do as monster hunters and how that separates us from non-powered people, the NPCs. Not in terms of a hierarchy, but in terms of philosophy. And so I am going to write the lens inside of Shaman States of America as this guide, but in the real life, in the real world, I'm going to explain to y'all why this is so important to me. So the need to be able to express this and express my games and the craziness that is building the life is the core behind this podcast. And because I'm not the only one who is having a hard time kind of articulating what it is that I'm trying to do for myself creatively. So those are the two things that I'm working on. Working on the Sugar Evil game system. I'm working on the lens, and everything else kind of like falls into those two buckets. I'm either serving one or the other. Oh yeah, that is my what.
And that was really exciting and engaging to me when I first saw you posting some of the your ideas about the lens. And I mean, and I read the first book and I really liked it. And I was like, this is really cool. And it kind of like it's not the same as my world, but it's kind of similar to my world enough that I could see like how things would work. And so yeah, I just got really excited about learning more about how you were approaching your creative life, because I've only been actively doing it since like 2020. And before that, I mean, I had creative things in my life, but I wasn't building my life around it.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I'm trying to get in to that now. Because well, let me start over then, I guess.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jenn Lessman. I'm Jenn Lessman. I'm an author, which is very exciting and new for me to say because my first book came out in October.
Yay.
So I have always been a reader. I have always been interested in creative activities and creative pursuits. I worked backstage in theaters for the first 4 or 5 or 6 years out of college, doing basically anything I could get anybody to pay me to do. So I was a stage manager. I was a sound board operator. I designed the set. I did a lot of painting, scenic painting. I worked backstage in really, really small theaters that were, restaurants during the day, and then bigger theaters like the Broadway in Chicago. I painted Harpo Studio. I painted the TV studio for Oprah for Harpo Studios.
Oh, when? What year?
That was, I want to say 2003, 2004. So yeah, and so then I actually got to work backstage during the show a couple of times because they needed extra hands. It was like, take this chair and carry it from here to there during a commercial break. I'm like, okay. So I did that for a while, and then I decided I needed something more stable, so I became a teacher, and created the drama department at a new high school that didn't have a drama department, and so I built that up from scratch over 8 years, and it was so rewarding, and I loved my students, and I loved the projects that we did, and like trying to figure out how to put together a show on like real small public school budget, and
shoestring.
a shoestring, all of it. Yeah, we're just making our own stuff and seeing if we can get who's got a dad who's good with power tools and can come in and whatever and help us get stuff done. Yeah, so I worked with teenagers doing plays, and I was also an English teacher, so a lot of reading and writing and sharing stories and trying to see what my students were interested in, and I got to a point where I was struggling with some of my older students with finding high interest books for them to read that that felt like they were challenging for them to read, but also things that they were engaged in and cared about and could relate to. And so when I started writing, I was thinking about some of these students and how they wanted something that was a little bit magical, but was set in the real world. They wanted their characters to have, real life problems that magic couldn't solve.
Mm-hmm.
But then they also wanted magic to happen,
Right.
And to be able to do something that was, not possible to stretch beyond what could happen in their daily life, and let them, engage in these fantasies and stuff. So, um, when I started writing, I went back to, like, I was a big Buffy fan for a while. I watched Charmed and Practical Magic and all of those, witchy Sabrina the Teenage Witch before they made her all dark and scary.
Yes.
Those kinds of things. And so I started writing, looking into the kids that I used to teach all read ahead of like where their own life is. So when the freshmen were 15-year-olds are all reading books about characters that are 19, 18, 19, 20.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, if I'm writing for kids who are more 17, 18-year-olds, then they're interested in college and they want to know what happens after college. But I also want to be able to write a book that they could talk to their parents about and not be embarrassed.
Right.
Like, they want to be able to have conversations with their mother or with their big sister or with whoever. So I wrote a book about a character who is in college. She's 20 years old and she's still struggling to kind of find her place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of these coming of age stories are all based around puberty or like earlier, and so you're supposed to have this prophecy come when you turn 16 or whatever, and then after that you just know who you are and you marry your prince, or you like save the world, or you defeat the Dark Lord or whatever it is, and then your life is supposed to come together and be perfect. And that's not the experience that most people have. And so I wanted to write a story where it was okay that she's a little bit older, she's in college, and she still hasn't figured out, who she is and what she wants and how she's going to move through the world, and that's going to be a thing that it's okay to continue working on and figuring out as she gets older and grows and learns. And I wanted that to be something that would be true for me too.
Yeah.
Because here I am in my 40s reinventing myself.
Yeah.
And so that's what the book is about: a young woman who came from a community of witches, but who doesn't have any magical powers of her own. And it's the mystery of the book is trying to figure out why that is, that she's different from everybody else that she grew up with. And then trying to figure out if it's okay to live in a community or be part of a family where you're just because if you're the black sheep, do you have to like go make your life somewhere else, or can you still find a way to fit in or to have those relationships even if you're different from the people that you came from?
Right.
And it was looking at moving on without leaving anything behind. And so can you go create your own world in your own life without necessarily having to cut ties or let go of the place where you came from?
This really sounds like not only the theme of your book, but the theme of why you do this podcast.
It is.
Okay. That makes sense to me. And I was listening to what you were saying before, and I knew that you were in theater in Chicago. I did not know that you started a theater department at a school in Chicago.
Yeah.
That sounds to me, to the Black woman in Texas here, that you have been living this creative life for a long time.
Yeah. I just it changes a lot, and I'm just now starting to recognize that that's a thing that I should be okay with, that like, because my parents' generation were, you get this job and you keep it. Like, my mom was a teacher, my dad was a teacher, but then he they needed to make more money for their growing family, and so he got a job at an insurance company, but then he kept it for like
30
40
years.
years or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
and my mom retired from teaching after however long. So when I quit doing as much of the freelance theater in order to become a teacher, it was this really strange moment of trying to decide, was that period of my life over, or could I go back to it? Could I still do any of those things? And for a while I did. Like in the summer when I didn't have school, I went and still painted sets for plays and things. But it did become more difficult the longer that I was teaching, because so much of the theater culture, at least in Chicago, is consistency and knowing people. And so they were still doing shows all year. And so by the time I'm like out of school and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to help out, they're like, yeah, we don't need you anymore because we hired the person who's been helping us while you've been at school.
Right.
So it became more of I had to I started putting more effort into, I mean, not that it wasn't before, but I put more effort into building what I was building at the school, because that was going to be my creative outlet. And my, you know, if I can't go work at another theater, then I'm gonna build my own.
Right.
And then I'm gonna bring all the kids around and get them interested. And they were all as excited as I was to try new things. And so we did a bunch of we started with little short plays, and then we did plays that the students wrote, and then the year I left, we did a musical for the first time.
Oh wow! Which one?
Fame.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really good. They did such a great job. But yeah, I picked that one because it's based. It takes place almost every scene is inside a school.
Right.
So we were able to use. We borrowed some platforms from another school, and then we were able to use just stuff that we had in the building. Because we had a dance class, so we brought the bar down so that they could do their ballet on it and stuff. And then we brought in a teacher desk for one of the scenes that takes place in classroom, and so saved some money on some of the setting and stuff that way, because it was things we already had. And the kids all made their own costumes because they're supposed to be high school kids. So we discussed, what is your character's style and how does it differ from your actual style? And then, you know, they sort of borrowed and traded, and we had to buy a few things, but not a lot for costuming. We brought in there are these walls that the high school theater has for when the orchestra is playing. It's supposed to help bounce the sound out.
Yeah.
So we brought those out and pretended they were like actual walls, and then we put posters on them and stuff to make it look like somebody's bedroom or like the classroom or stuff like that. But so that was really exciting. And there was a period when I first started building the program that I thought that might be a thing that I do for if not forever, for a really long time. And then potentially spinning off at some point and opening my own theater was a dream at one point.
Is it still?
I don't think so. It's just like, I don't have a business degree. And I don't like the business side of authoring has been like a major area of growth for me. And at this point in my life, I think building a business of one is about as much as I'm ready to do. So I don't know, but I have sort of come to the realization in the last 5 years or so that I shouldn't say never, or like I don't really have any long-term plans. I have like short plans, because like that was what I liked about working in theater when I first graduated from college, was that, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do 3 months from now, and that was really exciting. And being able to and now I maybe need a little bit more, right? Yeah, so now it's like
no one does.
I know what I'm doing a few months from now, but I don't, and I need to be a little more careful about it and more strategic about it, because I am ultimately hoping to build it into a business that will help support my family. But it is, I like the flexibility of it. I like the creativity of it. I like being able to pivot and change whenever. You know, I've written this first book. The second book is really close to being done. And I was looking at what am I going to write next. And there's a third book to this series that needs to get written, but there's 4 other stories that I'm also interested in, so I may just flip between them. I don't know. We'll see. I might just do one of the things that I've sort of started doing is bouncing between several stories in the planning stage and then seeing which one gets the closest to writing and then write that one.
That sounds like you sound like a woman who gets shit done. Because I would have let something stop me for like 2 to 3 good business weeks and then go back to it. You just like, oh, not a shit. Let me go do this one. Let me. I wanted to go back very briefly because the way your face lights up when you talk about the theater and what you were doing. Let me ask you this: what is it? What need did it fill? What was it about it that gave you that feel good juice in your head? That just the thing that keeps you that makes your face shine even when you're talking about it now, years removed from it. What is it? Can you put a pin into what is giving you the feel good juice about doing that work?
I mean, it's hard to explain. Like, I think there's a certain feeling of community and collaboration that I didn't have in any of the other things that I had ever tried to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody that's there is there because they love whichever aspect of it that they're doing. You know, the whether they're actors or the artists or all of those people do it because they are so excited about it,
Right.
and everybody is equally invested in creating something special that we can then share with an audience. And so I know it was just really, you know, you get to do something creative and make something that wasn't there before.
Right.
And then it's ephemeral. It's only going to last for, you know, however many nights you do the show, and then it's just done. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so if you missed it, you missed it. You
Right.
know, and so it's really exciting to have, you know, you're controlling the audience's attention for that night, and they've chosen to spend their night with you, and you have to. We talked about doing things that to um, feeling like your work was worthy
Yeah.
of whatever. And so there's that, and I like the motivation of trying to make sure that I'm giving them something that is deserving of the time that they're spending to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But also um the act of making it is fun for me, and the act of being around other people who are as excited about it as I am
Right.
um is really fun for me. And I feel like that doesn't happen in a lot of jobs, you know, where people
Right.
are just like genuinely enjoying what they're doing and happy to be there. And I mean, which isn't to say that we didn't get like frustrated, and people, I mean, there's
Right.
divas everywhere, you know. People get mad and there's a lot of stress, and it's like I I need there to be structure. And when you're in the theater, like, there are deadlines, and if they don't happen, stuff doesn't happen. And
Right.
it's like there are very clear like consequences for not making, like, you're here to have fun, and you're here to create something and build something and be creative and whatever. But if you don't get it done, you're letting other people down, or you're not, the thing that you want to have happen doesn't happen. And
Right.
there's a point where there's a clear cutoff. um and I think that's one of the things that's lacking in my author business, is that I have created all of the deadlines, and I am very wishy-washy about them.
Right. What was that?
Like,
What was that Terry Pratchett quote? It's like I love deadlines, especially the noise they make as they zoom by.
as they zoom past, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love. Ooh, that's a.
Oh, yep, there it
That's what mine.
goes.
Yep,
Yep.
that's how mine sound. They sound like little F1 cars, Formula One cars.
Right, right, right.
Right. I just let them go
But
by.
when I was doing theater, I had other people holding me accountable to a certain extent. Like,
Right.
they don't want to, but like they got to.
Right. No, I get that.
So
I get that. That's the reason why we're doing this podcast. Seriously, for accountability.
yeah,
I want to sit there and say, yes, I did the thing.
I did the thing.
I
Yeah.
did the thing. Um, so why not just be a creative director at a theater or operations director or why not do that? Why books?
Well, logistically,
Yeah.
we got to a point in my life where the theater stuff is not convenient for me because I have children,
Yeah.
and I can't be working in the, and I say that as they just started yelling down the hallway.
Right.
Um, but that I can't be working nights and weekends anymore.
Right.
So I need something where the schedule either matches the school schedule or the schedule is something that is flexible enough that I can change it. And so, and I did, when we first moved back here from Chicago, I did teach for a year, and then COVID happened, and it became like, do I want to go back or do we want to try something different? And it seemed like a good moment, and I think a lot of people felt that way. It was a good, like, all right, let's reevaluate what we're getting out of what we're doing, and if there's something better or something else that we would like to do. And there were things that I genuinely loved about teaching here. And I had an AP literature class that was amazing. My students were all super into talking about books.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might have been one of the things that pushed me into, like, I don't actually want to test people about books. I want to talk to people about books, and I want to potentially write my own books. Like, the talking about books part was fun, and the testing and the meetings and the data and all of that stuff,
Not so much.
not so much. I like the actual teaching, the being in front of the class and sharing stuff with them and having them come to their own realizations about things and all of that. But that is like 10% of what teaching is. So so when I had this moment of, do we go back or not, I was like, this is where we have the opportunity to take the road less traveled and try something completely risky and different and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already started writing the book before I made the decision not to go back.
Right.
And so I had enough of it written at that point that I was like, I could see where this might lead. And I was more curious about that than I was about what another year of teaching would look like. Because I did it for 16 years and our different states, same problems,
Right.
and the way the schools are run and the problems that the schools are having with budgeting and with administration and with leadership. It was pretty similar from one to the other. And I just got to a point where I was like, I don't want to keep facing these same arguments and doing the same, it's the definition of insanity, right? Like,
yes, it is.
I can't just get lost in the class and do that and nothing else, because there's all these other things that get in the way.
So this is the vehicle that we're going to use. Tell me, you told me about Unmagical, but you never did tell me the name of the book.
Okay, so yeah. So my first book, my debut novel, is called Unmagical. It is a witchy mystery. I have been.
Is it the Barnes and Nobles?
It is at Barnes and Nobles. It is on Amazon. It is. I'm in wide release, so it's a full wherever books are sold. Theoretically, you could get it.
Yes.
It is not actually in stores currently. I don't think it was in about 4 stores locally.
Mm-hmm.
But they sold out, and then some of them bought some more, and then some of them didn't. And then I went in for Indie Bookstore Day. I did a little tour and checked, and none of them had them on the shelf anymore. So I'm trying to work out what I need to do to convince them to keep the books on the shelves, because they're selling. They sold them. They don't have any more because they sold them. So they must be doing okay. And then my library has 1 copy in the local authors section that has been checked out consistently since they got it.
Nice.
So it was like 6 different people checked it out in 2 months. And so I'm trying to convince them that they need to order a couple of more copies and put them in the regular part of the book of the library instead of the local authors section. And then I had the Barnes and Noble that I grew up with, because I've moved home to the town where I grew up.
Oh. Because that's not a cozy mystery just waiting to happen.
Right. The Barnes and Noble in the mall that I used to go to as a teenager was gonna stock it. So at this point, I'm reevaluating how badly I want the books to be in bookstores. I like the idea of it being in a bookstore, but I don't know business wise how much it's worth my attention and my time to do that.